The snow fell heavy outside Murphy's Diner that December night in 1978. Margaret Davis wiped down the last table and looked at the clock on the wall. Almost midnight. Her feet hurt from standing all day, but she needed to finish cleaning before she could go home to her son. Maggie had worked 2 shifts again today. The morning shift at the diner, then the evening shift too because Jenny called in sick. She needed every dollar she could get. Christmas was coming, and 8-year-old Danny still believed in Santa Claus. She had exactly $30 saved up for his presents. Not much, but enough for a toy car and some candy. She turned off the lights and stepped out the back door into the cold Montana air. The snow crunched under her boots as she walked toward her old car. Then she heard something strange, a low groaning sound coming from behind the dumpster. Maggie stopped walking. Maybe it was just a stray dog, or maybe someone was hurt. She pulled her coat tighter and walked slowly toward the sound. What she saw made her heart stop. A man lay in the snow, but he was not like any man she had ever seen. His skin looked like it was covered in dark green scales that caught the light from the street lamp. His eyes were gold and glowing softly in the darkness. Blood darker than human blood stained the snow around him. Maggie should have run. She should have screamed. Instead, she knelt down next to the strange being. "Are you okay?" she whispered. The creature's golden eyes focused on her. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like gravel. "Please, do not be afraid. I mean no harm." His English was broken, but she could understand him. Burns covered his arms and chest. They looked like nothing she had ever seen before. The edges of the wounds glowed faintly blue. "What happened to you?" Maggie asked. "My ship crashed. I am injured." He tried to sit up and fell back with a groan of pain. "I am Lieutenant Commander Zektar of the Draconian Fleet." Maggie did not understand what a Draconian Fleet was, but she could see that this being was dying. The cold was making his wounds worse. His breathing was getting weaker. She made a decision that would change everything. "I'm going to help you," she said. "Can you walk?" Zektar shook his head. "Too weak, leave me. It is safer for you." "I'm not leaving anyone to die in the snow," Maggie said firmly. She had always been stubborn. Her mother used to say it would get her in trouble someday. She looked around. Her apartment was above the diner. If she could get him up there, she could take care of his wounds. But he was much bigger than her, probably 7 feet tall and heavily built. "I have a place where you can rest," she told him, "but you have to try to walk." It took almost an hour to get Zektar up the stairs to her small apartment. He leaned heavily on her, and she had to stop many times to let him rest. By the time they reached her door, both of them were exhausted. Danny was sleeping in his bed. Maggie quietly helped Zektar to her couch. Up close, she could see more details. His scales were beautiful in a strange way, shifting from dark green to almost black. His face was more human than she expected, but his teeth were sharp and his ears were pointed. "I need to clean your wounds," she said. "Do you have any medicine?" Zektar reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a small device. "This will help with healing, but I need human supplies too." Maggie looked at the burns covering his body. She had some first aid supplies, but not enough for wounds this serious. She would need more bandages, antiseptic, and medicine for pain. That meant going to the all-night pharmacy across town. She thought about the $30 in her purse. Danny's Christmas money. "I'll be back," she told Zektar. "Don't move around too much." The pharmacy clerk gave her strange looks as she bought supplies at 1 in the morning. Bandages, antiseptic, pain medicine, antibiotic cream. It cost her $28. Almost all of Danny's Christmas money. When she got back, Zektar was still conscious but very pale. His golden eyes followed her as she gathered supplies and hot water. "Why are you helping me?" he asked as she began cleaning his wounds. "You do not know me." "I could be dangerous." Maggie paused in her work. It was a good question. Why was she risking everything for a stranger who was not even human? "Because you're hurt," she said simply. "And everyone deserves help when they're hurt." She worked carefully, cleaning each burn and applying the antibiotic cream. Zektar's device seemed to speed up the healing, but her human medicine helped too. He winced sometimes but never complained. "Tell me about your home," Maggie said as she worked, trying to keep him talking. Zektar's eyes grew sad. "My people are warriors. We have been fighting a war for many years against an enemy that wants to destroy everything we love. I was sent here to study your world." "Study Earth? Why?" "Because the enemy will come here eventually. They take over planets and make slaves of the people. My leaders wanted to know if humans could fight back. Maggie thought about this as she bandaged his arm. And what do you think? Can we fight back? Zektar looked at her with those strange golden eyes. After tonight, I think humans are stronger than anyone knows. Not because you have weapons or armies, because you have something my enemy does not understand. What's that? Kindness to strangers. Willingness to sacrifice for others. Even when it costs you something precious. Maggie felt her cheeks get warm. She had not told him about spending Danny's Christmas money. Over the next 3 weeks, Maggie took care of Zektar. She brought him food and changed his bandages. She read to him from Danny's picture books to help him learn better English. Her son thought their visitor was her cousin from Canada, who had been in an accident. Zektar healed quickly with the combination of his technology and her care. He told her stories about distant stars and other worlds. He learned about human customs by watching her make breakfast and help Danny with homework. Your people have something special, he told her one evening. Most species in the galaxy fight only for themselves. Humans fight for each other, even for strangers. When it was time for him to leave, Zektar gave Maggie a small crystal that fit in her palm. It was warm to the touch and seemed to glow from inside. This is a token of friendship, he said. Someday it may prove important. Keep it safe. Will I ever see you again? Maggie asked. Zektar smiled, showing those sharp teeth. I will never forget what you did for me, and I promise you neither will my people. What you have given me is worth more than gold or weapons. You have given me hope. He left that night while Danny slept. Maggie watched from her window as a strange light rose from the woods behind the diner and disappeared into the stars. She kept the crystal in a box with her most precious things. Sometimes she wondered if she had dreamed the whole thing. But the crystal was real, warm in her hands, proof that for 3 weeks she had cared for a wounded soldier from another world. Maggie never told anyone about Zektar. Who would believe such a story? But she kept his memory alive in the bedtime stories she told. Danny about brave warriors from distant stars who fought to protect. Others she never knew that her simple act of kindness had planted seeds that would grow across the galaxy. 45 years passed like pages turning in a book. Maggie Davis kept the crystal safe in a small wooden box on her dresser. Sometimes she would hold it in her hands and remember those 3 weeks when her world had expanded beyond the stars. The crystal still felt warm, still glowed softly in the dark, but no one else ever saw it. Danny grew up believing his mother's bedtime stories about warriors from distant worlds were just fairy tales. But those stories shaped him in ways Maggie never expected. He studied hard in school, especially science and math. He read books about space and rockets. When he was 18, he told his mother he wanted to work for NASA. Why space, Danny? Maggie asked him. Because of your stories, Mom. About the brave people who travel between stars to help others. Even if they're just stories, they make me want to do something important. Maggie smiled and hugged her son. If only he knew how real those stories were. Danny got a scholarship to study engineering. He worked hard and graduated at the top of his class. NASA hired him right away. He moved to Houston to work on spacecraft designs. Every time he called home, he sounded happier. I'm working on engines for deep space travel, Mom, he told her during one call. My boss says I have unusual ideas about how to solve problems. He says I think outside the box. Maggie wondered if those unusual ideas came from the stories she had told him. Stories about alien technology and ships that could travel faster than light. The diner business grew over the years. Maggie worked hard and saved money. She hired good people and treated them well. By 1995, she had earned enough to buy the building. She expanded the diner and added rooms upstairs for travelers passing through town. People in town respected Maggie. She helped neighbors when they had troubles. She gave jobs to young people who needed work. She never charged full price when someone was having hard times. The townspeople called her the heart of Main Street. But at night, alone in her apartment, Maggie would sometimes look up at the stars and wonder what had happened to Zektar. Was he still alive? Was his war still going on? Did he ever think about the human woman who had helped him? She kept the crystal close. Sometimes it seemed to pulse with a different rhythm, as if it was trying to tell her something. She wondered if it was just her imagination. What Maggie did not know was that the crystal was much more than a simple gift. Far across the galaxy, it was sending signals to the Draconian fleet. Not just her location, but information about human behavior, how humans treated each other, how they responded to crisis, how they showed kindness to strangers. Admiral Zektar, as he was now known, had spent 45 years fighting the worst war the galaxy had ever seen. The enemy called themselves the Hegemony. They conquered worlds and enslaved entire species. They turned children into soldiers and destroyed anything beautiful or peaceful they found. The Draconian Empire had joined with other free worlds to form the Galactic Liberation Alliance. But the war was not going well. The Hegemony was too strong, too ruthless. They had better weapons and more ships. Worst of all, they seemed to enjoy causing suffering. Zektar had become one of the Alliance's best commanders. But victory seemed impossible. The Alliance was losing planets every year. Billions of innocent people had died or been enslaved. Many Alliance leaders were ready to give up and negotiate surrender. That was when the crystal's signals became important. For 45 years, the small device had been studying humanity. It recorded how humans acted during disasters, how they helped each other during floods and earthquakes, how they shared food during hard times, how they protected children even when it meant risking their own lives. The crystal had also recorded Maggie's life. Her daily acts of kindness, how she treated her employees fairly, how she helped sick neighbors, how she raised a son who wanted to explore space to help people on other worlds. Alliance scientists studied the data with growing amazement. Most species in the galaxy were selfish when threatened. They fought only to protect their own families or tribes. But humans were different. They fought for strangers. They died for ideas like freedom and justice. Look at this data. Dr. Veltar, a Alliance scientist, told Admiral Zektar. Humans will risk their lives to save people they have never met. They send aid to other countries during disasters. They adopt children from different races. This is almost unknown in the galaxy. Zektar studied the reports. He had suspected humans were special after meeting Maggie. But the crystal's data proved it. Humans had something the Alliance desperately needed: the ability to inspire others to fight for something bigger than themselves. There is more, Dr. Veltar continued. The human you met, Margaret Davis, has influenced thousands of people over the years. Her diner feeds travelers for free when they have no money. She has helped dozens of young people get jobs and education. Her son is now designing spacecraft that could revolutionize space travel. Zektar looked at recent images of Maggie, now an older woman with gray hair but the same kind eyes. She is still helping people. Yes, and her story has spread through the Alliance military. Soldiers tell each other about the human female who gave her last money to help a wounded enemy. It has become legend. Our troops fight harder because they believe kindness like hers is worth protecting. The war had reached a critical point. Alliance intelligence had discovered that the Hegemony had found Earth's location. A massive invasion fleet was being prepared. Earth would be attacked within 2 years. The Alliance Council faced a terrible choice. They did not have enough ships to protect Earth properly, but they could not abandon the world that had produced the most inspiring story of kindness their soldiers knew. We need human help, Zektar told the Council, not just their weapons or technology. We need their spirit, their ability to make others believe in something worth fighting for. Some Council members disagreed. They are a pre-contact species. They have never fought a space war. How can they help us? Zektar thought about Maggie cleaning his wounds with gentle hands, about her willingness to spend her last money on a stranger, about the son she had raised with stories of heroes who helped others. Because they understand what we have forgotten, he said, that the strongest weapon is not a gun or a bomb. It is the willingness to sacrifice for others. That human woman taught me this 45 years ago. Now I want to teach it to the entire Alliance. The Council voted to attempt something that had never been tried before. They would make contact with Earth. They would offer humanity membership in the Alliance, and they would start with the human who had started it all. Margaret Davis was about to receive visitors she never expected. But first, they had to figure out how to approach a species that had never seen aliens before. How do you ask an entire planet to join a war they never knew existed? Zektar had an idea. He would begin where it all started, with kindness, with respect, and with the woman who had shown him that the greatest strength was not the power to destroy, but the courage to help others. The crystal on Maggie's dresser began to pulse with a different light. After 45 years of waiting, it was finally time to fulfill the promise Zektar had made so long ago. He would never forget what she had done for him. And neither would the galaxy. Maggie was making coffee in her kitchen when she heard the trucks coming down Main Street. It was Tuesday morning, early October 2023. The sound was different from the usual delivery trucks that passed through town. These engines were deeper, more powerful. She looked out her window and felt her heart skip a beat. Military vehicles were driving slowly down the street. Big green trucks that looked like the ones she had seen on television news reports. Humvees, her son Danny had called them when he was younger and loved military shows. But why were they here? This was a small Montana town. Nothing important ever happened here. The vehicles stopped in front of her diner. One by one, soldiers got out. But as Maggie watched, she realized these were not normal soldiers. They wore strange suits that covered their entire bodies. The suits were silver and seemed to shine in the morning sunlight. More trucks arrived. The whole street filled with military vehicles. People came out of their houses and shops to stare. Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store stood on her porch with her mouth open. Old Pete from the gas station scratched his head and shook it. Then Maggie saw something that made her legs feel weak. One of the figures in the strange suits was much taller than the others. 7 feet tall, just like she remembered. He walked differently, too, with the careful steps of someone who was used to being much stronger than the people around him. The tall figure looked up at her window. Even through the silver suit, Maggie could see golden eyes looking at her. Her hand shook as she set down her coffee cup. After 45 years, he had come back. The crystal on her dresser began to glow brighter than it ever had before. It pulsed with warm light that filled her bedroom. Maggie walked slowly to the box and took out the crystal. It felt alive in her hands. Someone knocked on her door. Not the hard knocking of police or angry people. Gentle knocks like someone who did not want to scare her. Maggie walked downstairs and opened the door. The tall figure stood on her porch. Behind him, she could see more suited figures and curious townspeople watching from a safe distance. The figure reached up and touched something on his helmet. There was a soft hiss of air and the helmet came off. It was Zektar. Older now, with scars on his scaled face that had not been there before. His golden eyes were tired like someone who had seen too much war. But when he looked at her, they softened with the same kindness she remembered. "Hello, Margaret Davis," he said. His English was perfect now. "I told you I would never forget." Maggie stared at him. Part of her had always wondered if that winter night so long ago had been a dream. But here he was, real and solid, standing on her porch just like any other visitor. "Zektar," she whispered. Then louder. "Admiral Zektar, I should say. I can see the rank symbols on your suit." He smiled, showing those sharp teeth. "You remember?" "I never forgot either." She held up the crystal. It was glowing so brightly now that light spilled between her fingers. "This has been getting brighter for weeks. I thought something was wrong with it. Nothing is wrong."
"It has been calling to us, telling us you are ready." Maggie looked past him at the crowd of townspeople in military vehicles.
"Ready for what?" Zektar's expression became serious. "May I come inside? We have much to discuss and little time to do it." They sat at her kitchen table just like they had 45 years ago. But this time, Zektar was not wounded and dying. He was a powerful military leader with important news that would change everything. "The war I told you about," he began, "has grown worse than we ever imagined. The enemy has conquered half the galaxy. Billions of people have been killed or enslaved." Maggie poured him coffee. He had learned to drink it during his recovery and said he missed the taste. "And now they are coming here. Yes, they have found Earth. A massive invasion force is being prepared. They will be here within months, not years." The coffee cup shook in Maggie's hands. "How many people will they kill?" "All of them eventually. The hegemony does not allow free people to exist. They will take your children to be soldiers. They will force your adults to work in their factories until they die. They will destroy your culture, your art, your history." Maggie set down her cup. "What can we do? Humans have never fought in space. We barely have spacecraft that can reach our own moon regularly." Zektar leaned forward. "That is why I'm here. The Alliance wants to offer humanity something that has never been offered to a pre-contact species. Full membership, advanced technology, military training, a fleet of starships. In exchange for what? Your help in the war. But not just as soldiers, Margaret. We need something more precious than fighters. We need what you showed me that night in the snow." Maggie frowned. "I don't understand. Hope, inspiration, the ability to make others believe that some things are worth dying for." Zektar reached into a pouch and pulled out a small device. Images appeared in the air above the table. Maggie gasped. The images showed alien worlds burning. Cities destroyed, families being torn apart, but they also showed something else. Alliance soldiers fighting desperately to protect evacuation ships. Warriors throwing themselves between the enemy and defenseless civilians. "This is Commander Veldon," Zektar said, pointing to one image. He held off an entire hegemony battalion, so that a hospital ship full of children could escape. When we asked him why he risked his life for strangers, he said he was inspired by a story he heard. The story of a human female who gave her last money to help a wounded enemy. More images appeared. Soldiers from different species working together, pilots ramming their ships into enemy vessels to save others, medics running into battle to help the wounded. "Your story has spread through the entire Alliance military," Zektar continued. "It has become legend. Our soldiers fight harder because they believe that if one human woman could show such kindness to a stranger, then kindness and courage are worth protecting." Maggie stared at the images. "You're saying that helping you all those years ago has made a difference in your war?" "More than you can imagine. Alliance psychologists have studied human behavior through the crystal's data for 45 years. Humans have something unique in the galaxy. You fight not just for yourselves, but for ideas, for freedom, for justice, for people you have never met. And you want all of humanity to join your war." Zektar's golden eyes met hers. "I want humanity to have a choice. The hegemony will not give you that choice. They will simply conquer and destroy. The Alliance offers partnership, not conquest." Maggie stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see townspeople talking in excited groups. Military personnel were setting up equipment. Her quiet life was about to end forever. "Why me?" she asked. "Why not go to the President or the United Nations?" "Because leaders need to understand what they are asking their people to do. And you understand better than anyone what it means to sacrifice for strangers." Zektar stood and joined her at the window. "Also because humans respond better to leadership they trust. The Alliance has been watching your species for decades. Humans follow people who have proven their character through actions, not words." Maggie thought about her son Danny, working for NASA, about all the young people in town who looked up to her, about the customers at her diner who trusted her advice. "If I agree to help, what happens next? We begin the greatest challenge any species has ever faced. We teach humanity about the galaxy. We prepare them for a war unlike anything in their history. And we hope that human courage and kindness can inspire the Alliance to victory." Maggie looked at the crystal in her hand. It pulsed with warm, steady light. 45 years ago, she had made a choice to help a stranger. Now she had to make an even bigger choice. Will humanity have time to decide for themselves? "Yes," Zektar promised. "We will not force your species into anything. But Margaret, you must understand. Time is running out. The hegemony fleet grows larger every day." Maggie took a deep breath. "Then we better get started." The next 3 days changed everything Maggie thought she knew about the world. Alliance ships landed in the fields outside town. Not the small scout ship Zektar had crashed in 45 years ago, but massive vessels that looked like floating cities. Scientists and diplomats from dozens of different alien species came to meet with her. They looked nothing like humans. Some had fur, others had feathers. Some walked on 4 legs, others floated in the air. But all of them treated Maggie with the same respect they would show a queen. "We are honored to meet the Kindness Keeper," said Dr. Yelshan, a tall being with blue skin and large black eyes. "That is what we call you in our language. The one who showed mercy to an enemy." Maggie felt overwhelmed. "I just helped someone who was hurt. Anyone would have done the same thing." Dr. Yelshan shook her head. "No, Margaret Davis. Most species in the galaxy would not have helped. They would have been afraid, or they would have seen an opportunity to gain something. You asked for nothing in return." The Alliance had prepared a presentation for her. They showed her maps of the galaxy with thousands of stars and planets. Green dots showed worlds that were still free. Red dots showed worlds conquered by the hegemony. There were far too many red dots. "Every day more worlds fall," Admiral Zektar explained. "The hegemony has weapons that can destroy entire planets. They have turned billions of people into slaves. They take children from their parents and train them to be soldiers." Commander Felron, a being that looked like a giant cat with silver fur, stepped forward. "But they have never faced humans before. Our scientists have studied your species for decades through the crystal's data. Humans have qualities that could change the course of this war." Maggie sat in a chair that had been made specially for her human size. Around her, Beings from across the galaxy waited for her words. The weight of responsibility felt crushing. What qualities? She asked. Dr. Yelshan activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air. Cities full of people, children playing in parks, families having dinner together. Humans fight for strangers, she said. When there are earthquakes or floods in distant countries, humans send help. When children are hungry on the other side of the world, humans send food. Most species only care about their own kind. More images appeared. Human soldiers in old wars protecting civilians. Doctors traveling to poor countries to help sick people. Teachers working in dangerous places to educate children. Humans also have something we call adaptive creativity, Commander Felron added. When you face problems, you find new solutions. You think in ways that surprise everyone, including yourselves. Admiral Zektar leaned forward. But most importantly, humans inspire others. Your story, Margaret, has been told to Alliance soldiers for years. It gives them courage. It reminds them why they fight. Maggie looked at all the alien faces watching her. But I'm just one person. How can you know that all humans are like me? Because of this, Dr. Yelshan said. Images of Maggie's life appeared in the air. Her helping sick neighbors. Her giving jobs to young people who needed work. Her feeding travelers who had no money. The crystal has been recording human behavior for 45 years, Admiral Zektar explained. Not just your behavior, but the behavior of everyone around you. We have seen how humans respond to crisis, how they help each other, how they protect the weak. More images showed scenes from around the world. Humans rescuing people from burning buildings, doctors working in war zones, parents adopting children from different countries. We have also studied your son, Daniel, Commander Felron said gently. His work at NASA shows the same creativity and determination. He has been developing spacecraft engines that our best engineers find fascinating. Maggie's heart jumped. Danny, you've been watching Danny? Not watching, Admiral Zektar assured her. The crystal only recorded what it could observe naturally. But Daniel's career path, his innovations, his desire to explore space to help others, all of this shows that your influence has spread beyond just one person. Dr. Yelshan touched a control, and the images changed to show Danny at his workstation in Houston. He was older now with gray in his hair, but Maggie could see the same curiosity in his eyes that he had shown as a child. We would like to bring Daniel here, Admiral Zektar said, along with other key humans. Scientists, military leaders, diplomats, people who can help bridge the gap between our species. You mean people who can convince humanity to join your war, Maggie said. The room grew quiet. Finally, Admiral Zektar nodded. Yes, but Margaret, you must understand something. This war is coming to Earth whether humans join us or not. The hegemony fleet is already moving toward your solar system. He activated another display. This one showed space with moving dots of light. These are hegemony ships. They will reach Earth in 8 months. They have enough firepower to destroy your entire planet. Maggie felt cold fear in her stomach. 8 months? The Alliance fleet is moving to intercept them, Commander Felron said. But we are outnumbered 3-1. Without human help, we cannot win. And if we lose, Dr. Yelshan added softly, Earth dies anyway. But if we win with human help, your people survive and join a community of free worlds that spans the galaxy. Maggie stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see her little town continuing its normal life. People went to work, children played in the park, and Mrs. Henderson was hanging laundry on her line. None of them knew that alien fleets were racing toward Earth. What exactly are you asking me to do? She said. Become our ambassador to humanity, Admiral Zektar replied. Help us make contact with your governments. Help us show your people that we come as friends, not conquerors. And help convince them to fight a war they never asked for. Help them understand that they are already in this war, Dr. Yelshan corrected. The hegemony made that choice for them years ago when they decided to invade Earth. Maggie thought about Danny, building spacecraft engines and dreaming of helping people among the stars. She thought about all the young people who worked at her diner, full of hope for their futures. She thought about Mrs. Henderson and old Pete and all the neighbors who trusted her. If I do this, she said slowly, I need promises from you. Name them, Admiral Zektar said immediately. Humanity gets to make its own choice. No manipulation, no lies, no forcing. You tell them the truth about everything, even the bad parts. Agreed. And if humanity chooses to fight, they fight as equals, not as junior partners. Human ideas and human leadership matter just as much as alien ideas. Commander Felron and Dr. Yelshan looked at each other. This was not what they had expected. That is, unusual, Dr. Yelshan said carefully. Most species that join the Alliance start as junior members. Humans are not most species, Maggie said firmly. You said so yourselves. If you want human help, you get human stubbornness too. Admiral Zektar laughed, the first time Maggie had heard him laugh in 45 years. She is exactly the same as she was when she cleaned my wounds. Stubborn and kind and completely impossible to argue with. Is that a yes? Maggie asked. That is a yes, he confirmed. Humans will be full partners from day one. Maggie nodded. Then I'll help you. But first I want to call my son. 2 hours later, Danny's voice came through the special communication device the Alliance had set up. Mom, what's going on? NASA says I need to take emergency leave and fly to Montana immediately. Something about a classified project. Maggie looked at Admiral Zektar, who nodded encouragingly. Danny, she said, remember those bedtime stories I used to tell you? About warriors from the stars? Of course, Mom, why? They weren't stories. Danny arrived in Montana 12 hours after his mother's phone call. He walked into the diner expecting to find his mother sick or in trouble. Instead, he found her sitting at a table with a 7-foot-tall alien drinking coffee and discussing spacecraft engine designs. Hello, Daniel, Admiral Zektar said in perfect English. Your mother has told me many stories about you over the years. Danny stared. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Finally, he managed to speak. Mom, what's happening? Sit down, honey, Maggie said gently. We have a lot to talk about. It took 2 days to explain everything to Danny. The crashed ship 45 years ago. The crystal. The Galactic War. The coming invasion. Danny was a smart man and he understood technology. But understanding that aliens were real and that Earth was about to be attacked was harder than any engineering problem he had ever solved. So my whole career, he said slowly, the innovations I've been working on, the ideas that seemed to come from nowhere, they were inspired by stories you told me about real alien technology. Maggie nodded. I never told you they were real because I was afraid no one would believe me. But yes, the stories came from what Zektar taught me about space travel. Danny looked at Admiral Zektar. And you've been fighting this war for 45 years because aliens want to enslave everyone. The hegemony wants to control the galaxy, Zektar confirmed. They see freedom as a threat to their power. Any species that thinks for itself must be destroyed or enslaved? And they're coming here in 8 months. Less now, 7 months and 12 days. Danny was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, what do you need from humanity? Over the next week, Alliance ships landed near major cities around the world. The governments had been contacted secretly first. Presidents and prime ministers were shown the same evidence Maggie had seen. Most reacted with shock, then fear, then anger. But Admiral Zektar had been right about one thing. Humans responded better to leaders they trusted. When Maggie appeared on television stations around the world, telling her story simply and honestly, people listened. I know this sounds impossible, she said during her first global broadcast. I know it's scary. But 45 years ago, I found a wounded soldier behind my diner. I helped him because it was the right thing to do. Now he's come back to help us. The reaction was chaos at first. Some people panicked. Some refused to believe. Some demanded proof. But the Alliance was prepared for this. They showed their ships openly. They demonstrated their technology. They let human scientists examine their equipment. Dr. Sarah Kim from MIT spent 3 days studying Alliance medical devices. This technology is centuries ahead of ours, she announced at a press conference. But it's real and it works. General Frank Martinez flew in one of the Alliance shuttles. I've been a pilot for 30 years, he said afterward. This is beyond anything we've ever imagined. But these people aren't our enemies. They're asking for our help. The president called for an emergency session of Congress. The United Nations held emergency meetings. Every major government on Earth had to decide the same thing. Would they join an interstellar war to save their planet? But the most important meetings happened in small groups. Alliance officers met with human military leaders to explain the enemy they faced. Alliance scientists worked with human researchers to share technology. Alliance doctors taught human medics how to treat injuries from energy weapons. Danny found himself working with Alliance engineers to upgrade human spacecraft. Your engines are primitive but clever, Commander Telvak told him. You solve problems in ways we never considered. Combined with our power sources, your designs could revolutionize space travel. The work was exhausting but exciting. Humans learned faster than the Alliance had expected. Within weeks, human pilots were flying Alliance shuttles. Human soldiers were training with energy weapons. Human doctors were learning alien medicine. But it was the ordinary people who surprised everyone the most. When the first Alliance hospital ship arrived carrying wounded soldiers from distant battles, human volunteers lined up to help. They brought food, blankets, and comfort to alien warriors who had been fighting to protect strangers they had never met. "Why do you help us?" asked Sergeant Morden, a reptilian soldier recovering from terrible injuries. "Because you got hurt protecting people," replied Betty Thompson, a nurse from Denver. "That makes you family." Stories spread quickly through both human and Alliance communities. A human firefighter named Jack Miller saved a group of Alliance technicians when their shuttle crashed. Alliance medic Velera worked for 36 hours straight to save human pilots injured in a training accident. The most powerful moment came during a joint memorial service. Alliance Commander Yelton had died protecting a human city from a hegemony probe attack. At his funeral, both human and alien soldiers stood together while a human chaplain and an Alliance priest conducted the ceremony. "He died for people he had barely met," the chaplain said. But he understood something important. Freedom is not about species or planets. It's about the right of all thinking beings to choose their own path. 5 months before the hegemony invasion, the combined human Alliance fleet held its first major battle exercise. Ships from dozens of worlds flew alongside newly upgraded human vessels. The exercise revealed something unexpected. Human captains thought differently than Alliance officers. Where Alliance tactics were careful and methodical, human strategies were bold and unpredictable. Where Alliance commanders followed established procedures, human leaders improvised and adapted. "This is impossible," Admiral Korvek said after watching Captain Lisa Torres lead a successful attack against a simulated enemy fleet. "She violated 6 major tactical principles and somehow won anyway." Admiral Zektar smiled. "That is exactly why we need them." The real test came when hegemony scouts reached the outer solar system. 3 enemy ships, faster and better armed than anything the Alliance had faced before, swept through the asteroid belt looking for weaknesses. Captain Jim Sullivan, commanding the human destroyer Hope, intercepted them with a squadron of mixed human and Alliance fighters. The enemy expected standard Alliance tactics. Instead, Sullivan split his force and attacked from 6 directions at once while broadcasting human music at full volume. "What are they doing?" the hegemony commander demanded as Earth's classical symphonies filled the communication channels. Sullivan's answer came in the form of a coordinated attack that destroyed all 3 enemy ships. "Welcome to Earth," he said over the radio. "We do things a little differently here." News of the victory spread throughout both fleets. Human and alien crews celebrated together. For the first time in decades, Alliance forces had won a clear victory against hegemony scouts. But everyone knew the real battle was still coming. Maggie, now wearing the uniform of an Alliance diplomatic coordinator, stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the final preparations. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds had gathered to defend Earth. Human vessels flew alongside alien warships that looked like floating cities. "Are you afraid?" Admiral Zektar asked her. Maggie thought about the question. "Yes," she said, "but not of dying. I'm afraid of letting down all these people who believed in us." "You gave me hope 45 years ago when I had none," Zektar said. "Now you have given hope to the entire galaxy. Whatever happens in the coming battle, humans have already changed us forever." The crystal, now mounted in a place of honor on the bridge, pulsed with warm light. Around them, the greatest fleet in galactic history prepared to defend a small blue planet whose people had learned to fight, not just for themselves, but for the freedom of all thinking beings. The hegemony invasion force was 3 days away. Humanity's answer was ready,